Hello and welcome to the September edition of MyTechU. Today we're going to be talking about Office 365 and Proofpoint. How that's going to be a better together solution for our customers that are looking at O365. So today I'm looking forward to we're joined by Jeff Funk, who's one of our MyTech NOC engineers, and we're also joined by Trent Carpenter from Proofpoint. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello. Nice to meet everybody.
So thank you both for joining us. Couple of logistical components. This session is being recorded. If anybody the folks that are watching online right now, go ahead and use the question pane if you have any questions. Otherwise, the audience is muted the whole time. And if there's anything we're not able to get to through this presentation, we will either we'll try and interject it if we can, and if we can't, we'll follow up with you individually offline. So, all right. So today, one of the things I always like to hit on that's important, and Jeff and Trent definitely interject whenever you, if you have any thoughts or comments or questions that you know that come from customers on a regular basis and from folks that are using the different solutions. But I really wanted to touch on why are we talking about this now? And the reason why we feel that now is an opportunity for those of you who might have been or are in the process of considering Office 365, is that there's a solution out there for those of you who may be on it that started with MX Logic. It's a spam filtering solution that's been around for a long time, as long as spam filters have existed, pretty much. But it's going away at the end of January of next year. And so one of the reasons why we wanted to bring this is to talk about some of the features and components that you might want to consider, and that there is a little bit of urgency around it. If you want to possibly have, instead of having two transitions with regard to your email communication, such as one that might move from your Exchange server to an O365 environment, so that'll be a disruption for your staff, as well as a transition to a different spam filter. So there could be value in only having one disruption of making those happen at the same time for those of you who are we're all being put into a situation if you're using that spam filter that's going away at the end of this year. So that's the reason why we're talking today, is really trying to give you some of those things that we see that our customers have been asking about, some of the things to consider if this applies to you, as well as some of the components of Proofpoint from a new spam filtering and email security perspective that you could consider that might apply to your organization that you might not have thought about in the past. So that's what we're going to cover today. Again, Jeff and Trent are going to complement and help guide us through some of these details. Anything else to add, gentlemen, at this time?
Not for me.
All right.
Nope.
So just to start, to hit on some of the small business Office 365 programs. Now, this is readily available online, so I'm not telling you anything that's groundbreaking here. However, there is a difference between the enterprise plans, which we'll talk about next, and some of the plans that are designed for and priced and limited to a small business environment. So first and foremost, I want to hit on some of the differences because it'll apply the Office 365 Essentials that's there. You can see the cost there, but that is there is an annual commitment. But that is the core of what we see most people using when they go to O365. So those icons there, if you see, and I'll try and hover my cursor if you can see it, this is just the Exchange Online or email. This is OneDrive that does the synchronization that Microsoft has, and this is SharePoint, and then Skype. So that's what those icons mean. That is the suite of packages that we see most of our customers using, and for small businesses, it's a reasonable amount at $5 per person per month. So I want to hit on what's included in that. And then the Office 365 Business, it's interesting, there's a little bit of a misnomer that confuses people around Office 365, because Office 365 is a suite of services to which you can subscribe, and the first package is actually Exchange Online and SharePoint and Skype. The second one is actually just a different way to license Microsoft Office. So that is one of the things that it's not a different version of Office. So it's not like you have Office 2013 or Office 2016 and then there's O365. It's not a different version. It's just a different way to subscribe to or license your organization or your folks, your team for Office. and it's the most current version that is available, as it says, Office 2016 desktop and mobile apps. So that's another way that if you just wanted to, if you're replacing computers or something like that, and you didn't want to buy another license, just buy the actual copy, you could actually subscribe on a month-to-month basis through this Office 365 business package here in the middle. The last one, as you might guess, is the combination of both. So one of the things that's nice that Microsoft has done is that you could start with the Office 365 Business Essentials, and then let's say the person, one of your teammates or team members are actually replacing their machine and you're looking to get a different version of Office. We'll tell you what, you can then just add on the Office Business and subscribe them to the Office 365 Business Premium, which will give them access to both. You can do this on a user-by-user basis. So you might have 20 members on your team or 50 members on your team. Not all of them have to subscribe to the Office Business, the Office licensing component. You can do those on a user-by-user basis. So we actually see a lot of our customers doing that. We'll touch on that a little bit later. But I wanted to start with just a delineation of this is the small business packages that have evolved over the last couple of years, because Microsoft started here, which is with the enterprise programs, or what oftentimes people call E1, as you see here, or E3 that you see on the far right side of the screen. So it's essentially the same program. Now what you notice is that there are a couple extra feature sets that are here, Yammer and Delve. We don't have at Mitek a single customer that really uses either of those components. So that's why one of the reasons why not only is it more expensive, a few dollars more per user per month, but that's not really the technology that we see our small and medium business customers using. So so roughly the same package. Go ahead.
I've looked through some of that stuff too, and tried to find some sort of use that we can use, but haven't been able to at this point see something that can really work for us, for Mitek, the Delve and the Yammer.
Yeah, Jeff, that's a great point. I mean, one of the things that we try and subscribe to is we want to drink our own champagne, or some people might say eat our own dog food, as far as finding ways to where this might be valuable so that we can vet it and test it ourselves before we suggest it or recommend it to customers. And that's a good point, Jeff. We haven't found a way that is really we feel is applicable, so it's something that if our customers found a reason that it did fit their unique business need or requirement, it's not a problem to be able to put it in place. It's just that we don't find most of our customers doing that, and so the small business plans are typically a better fit. Anything else on that, Jeff? Is that the point you're making?
Yep.
Perfect. So the same, similarly to the small business plans, if you just want to license Office, you can do that as well through the enterprise plans. And again, you're just licensing Office, and they're giving you access to OneDrive down here, similar to the small business plans on the previous page. And finally, the third one, E3 or the enterprise version, again, it's the combination of both as far as having your Office licensing and your Office hosted services or your O365 services. Again, most of our customers, if they're doing this, they're leveraging the small business plans because they're more cost effective and they don't need some of these extra capabilities. So that is really the key points that I wanted to make there. You can a la carte some of these services. We're not going to go into all of those individual services that you can a la carte, but there is an Exchange Online program if all you want is Exchange. I believe that dollar amount is $4 per user per month. So one of the things that for an extra $1 per user a month, you're able to get SharePoint and Skype. So that's usually where we recommend our customers start, as long as they're under, I think it's a 250 seat minimum, or maximum, excuse me, 250 seat maximum that where the small business plans apply. If you go above and beyond that, you're going to be into the enterprise plans. So I know pricing and talking about these things are not exactly the most exciting component of what this is, but I wanted to have a base conversation so that there is some understanding that there is a small business and enterprise plans, and really the differentiation between subscribing to the services that Microsoft offers through that suite versus the licensing. I think those are common areas of confusion that our customers have expressed to us, and I wanted to take a moment to articulate that. Okay, so the next section that we really wanted to touch on is how are we seeing organizations leverage Office 365 or O365, as we often abbreviate. The biggest way is hosted email, or what Microsoft would call Exchange Online. And so from an end user perspective, if you're using your email like you usually do, using an Outlook client, which is the way most people access their email, or you could use an Outlook web access, really your world doesn't change at all. It's just your email, instead of being maybe on a server at your main office or at a headquarters, your email is now hosted at Microsoft. That could be any one of their data centers around the world. So, but from an end user perspective, again, you still use Outlook or Outlook Web Access or your mobile phone. It doesn't really matter. It's a different place to hold your email as opposed to access your email. So that's one of the main, the number one use that we see for organizations. And what's really driven that over the last several years, from our perspective, is the fact that 5 years ago and maybe 10 years ago, to do hosted email services was $12 to $15 or more per user per month. As you saw in the last pricing point, we're down to the $4 or $5 per user. So when you actually have done the math on the return on the investment, we've found for most of our customers when we've done this analysis is that to buy a server or servers, to buy the licensing, to implement and support and back up, and all the costs that go into running your own Exchange server to provide email really now outweigh the cost of just hosting it at Microsoft. The price point has come down where it oftentimes financially makes a lot more sense to host the email versus buying it and supporting it and running it yourself.
And I'll add something to that. I'm in an organization outside of Mitek that just an ensemble that I play in, and we never had Exchange servers, we never had email, but because of Office 365 and the pricing and what we could do, now we actually the group has email. It's linked with our website. We can get audition requests and everything, and we look a lot better. I mean, that's an organization that is, different than some of the companies we work with, but how we are able to leverage Office 365 has made our group look a little bit more professional and given us a lot more utility because of the pricing and how good this has been for the mail world.
Yeah, that's great, Jeff. And I think, really what you're saying is the fact that, what would historically be really cost prohibitive for smaller organizations, especially ones that are, maybe, I don't want to call it hobby, that's not the right word for it, but, an offshoot or a small group or a small business, this is a lot more cost effective to be able to, be charged $4 or $5 per person per month than spending tens of thousands of dollars on servers and licensings and backups and things like that.
Correct. Yeah.
So, yeah, very good. The second bullet, kind of the only bullet I really wanted to touch on here, is that we are seeing a trend for more and more people leveraging email encryption or encrypted email. Now, there is an additional cost for that. There are multiple ways for doing that, and one of the things that we'll touch on later, and Trent will be able to elaborate on, is the fact that the cost to add email encryption onto O365 is a good chunk of the cost, or roughly the same, or definitely a good chunk, more than half of the cost, depending on a potential plan, if you were to add a third-party spam filter and email security in front of it, which gives you a whole bunch of other functionality and feature sets for your business. So that's why oftentimes we're not suggesting leveraging email encryption through O365. Sometimes it's a good fit, but not always. But that's definitely something that we see as a trend happening in our world. I don't know, Jeff, have you experienced anything like that, or is that, do you have anything to add? Because I know you have more experience with practically working with the customers and setting this stuff up than I do.
No, specifically with regards to encryption, or?
Yeah, with the encryption in particular, any customers dealing with that?
I haven't had to work with any customers with the encryption piece at this point, from my experience.
I know that it's not, encrypted email sometimes is a misnomer as well, is because it's just the nature of email is it's an insecure technology. It's not encrypted. It's open text, and anyone can read it on the internet. But this is definitely a way to try and help those organizations like insurance providers or medical providers be able to communicate in a secure fashion. So it's very often that not everyone in your organization needs encrypted email. So there's some of those nuances to consider as you're looking at O365 or email security solutions and encryption. All right, moving on to the next one. So this is one that I actually am excited about because it's something that is really a differentiator. It's for the first time in many years, the technology is actually changed or different, or allows us to actually operate and communicate differently. You know, over the last 15 years, when you just talk about email, it's still email, right? It's still the same way of communicating. It's the same way of communicating. It's just whether or not it's in your office or at a data center. But this Skype is actually something that used to be called Lync. Now it's Skype for Business. Is something that has definitely changed a lot of the communication in an organization with regard to presence and just being able to instant message, to quickly be able to share a screen if you're collaborating with someone in your office, or if you're working remotely or from different offices, as well as to be able to do quick voice and video calls for team meetings, or just to be able to have more of a face-to-face feel with video as opposed to just a phone call. So we're going to touch on Skype a little more as far as some of the feature sets. So and just something that you might see. For instance, here's things that you can see. Presence is a big one. I'll actually, in the next couple slides, we're going to show you what Skype looks like live, and we'll show a screen share and things like that. And it's not to say, oh my gosh, how amazing is a screen share? It's more to show how easy it is to do it. And I think that's one of the big things that's really changed with Skype and how it's having an impact on businesses. So, so you see the user. So I've got an example of a screenshot of my Skype. You see that this is when the screenshot was taken. I'd been offline for a couple days. And then you've got a little bullet over here on the side where you can just add participants to the conversation pretty easily. You can instant message, and there's here. It's a pretty simple. You see kind of a video call, a phone for a voice call, the screen share, other options, etc. So basically, some other instant messaging that you've probably seen over the years, but this is something that actually can integrate with the rest of your organization, your same username and password that you use for your organization, as well as knowing that if your team members are online, it'll show a little green dot versus a little red dot versus a little yellow dot, or this one shows offline, for example. So some simple things just to show. So now I wanted to do a quick demo of some of the ways in which organizations are leveraging O365, and actually just show you some of these key, instead of just showing you a screenshot. So I'm going to get out of this real quick. And so now everyone sees my Skype directory here. And I'm actually going to start by showing how to find contacts and add contacts to it, because these are some of the questions that we've also gotten from our customers with regard to how do I do some of these basic things, right? So I'm going to start by saying you can find someone. And Jeff is on the phone here, so I'm going to search for Jeffrey Funk. So now, one of the things that you see here is that you see my contacts, but one of the other advantages that Skype has is there is a Skype directory, which means you can actually search for anyone in the world who has Skype for Business. You might be able to find them. Now, they can block or require permissions to be able to access them or not, but you can search not only my contacts, which are folks inside of your organization, but also external. Now, that is an option from a feature set perspective where you can set that or not. So now I found Jeff. I'm going to right-click on Jeff, and I'm going to add him to a contacts list. So notice I've actually already created a contact list in my favorites. So we have Jeff as part of our Network Operations Center team, or our NOC. So I'm actually going to click on that. And as you notice as I scroll down, now I've got my MyTech NOC group, and Jeff is now there. And Jeff is showing as red because Skype is actually integrated with our Outlook calendar, and so it knows that Jeff is in a meeting right now because he's on this call. So the other thing I'll show you, now the group was already here, but just to give you an example, this is where you can actually say add a contact or create a new group, and this is where you can define different groups that you'd like to create. So the other thing I wanted to highlight here before I actually did a session with Jeff and I did an instant message and show a couple other components is that I actually have members that are outside different groups that are like we work with Dell a lot. So I actually have, this is my primary Dell field representative that I work with, and so it shows marks away. Luke is our sales engineer or senior systems engineer that we work with, and he's busy, so I know he's not available. He's online, but he's shown as busy. But Dan is actually who I work with specifically for SonicWall as an example, and I show that he's available. So I know right now, because Dan is online, I could actually click this, and I could send Dan an instant message. And it says he's the SonarQual channel account manager. So you can use Skype not just for internal members, but if you can create groups and quickly and easily work with external vendors as well, as long as they're, again, just members as long as they're on Skype. So, all right, so now I see that Jeff has already actually sent me a message. So I'm actually going to cancel this out just so that you see how I can create that or start that session. I'm going to cancel that from Dan as well. So I'm going to go down to Jeff. Say, all right, I'm just going to hover over his name, and these options pop up. From here, I could initiate an instant message, phone call, video call, see his contact information or more. I'm just going to click on an instant message. You notice I'll just say, hello, Jeff. So now Jeff pops up on that message, and Jeff is we're going to have him share his screen so we can see how easy that is to do. I'm not getting a response from Jeff. That's what
I know. Mine. I'm sorry.
There you are.
Where?
Maybe I shouldn't have canceled that session. There we go. All right.
Yeah, I didn't comb my hair today, so I'm glad it's not a video. All right. So I'll go ahead and hit the little screen button, and I will have options that actually allow you to either do the entire desktop or just one part of a screen. But I'm going to do my entire desktop here, and I'll do monitor 2. And I'll present.
What Jeff is saying, if you have multiple monitors, one of the things that when you push that button, you'll have the option, and here we go. So Jeff popped that up, and so now I have on, I'll make sure that I get this as large as possible. I'll just maximize this screen here. So we actually have the instant message screen up, which I can X out of if I want to. It shows 2 participants. I can actually add a participant over here if I want. So if maybe we started the meeting and we actually want to add somebody else, we can add somebody over here. But Jeff just said, hey, share his screen, and he can go through, and now I'm looking at Jeff's desktop. Now, one of the things that I also like to note is that you can request control. So let's say, and I've used this before, and just to give you an example, is if let's say there's if Jeff had an application up on his desk, or if I was saying, hey, I want to show you on our website where you can find this information, I can say, instead of trying to walk him through it, say, hey, click on that button over there. You see this tab here? I can actually say, hey, Jeff, do you mind if I take control? I can click request control, and then very quickly I can walk him through it. So that's something that you can do. Jeff is just a couple rooms over in our office here in Minnesota.
No, I'm in Hawaii.
Also works. Oh, you're in
I'm
Hawaii.
In Hawaii.
Okay, that's
on the beach. Yeah.
That's great. So, but it works. It works anywhere, right? So whether you're working from home, and I'll even admit that I actually did this once. Not to brag, but just to show you an illustration of how well it can be done. I was driving on a ski trip in Colorado. I was planning on. I took a day off. But I happened to be doing a little work, and my Skype was on, and they saw that I was available, so I got a message and actually did a video call while my laptop was tethered to my cell phone, and I was able to do a Skype video call while I was driving down I-70. I wasn't driving; I was the passenger, by the way. But so it's something that actually works really well, and people, if they know you're available, you can communicate very easily with your organization. So as you see on Jeff's screen here, and I know it's probably a little smaller for those watching, but the red bullet here next to my name because we're in the middle of a call, so other people are going to see that as well. And then on the Skype directory here that Jeff has, you'll see several people that are, there's the yellow, so he's away. Corey is available, and you can also have your little image or picture, a little kind of a thumbnail. And so you can see relative to our team, instead of trying to hunt someone down from a time efficiency perspective, you can actually see, oh, they're available, they're online and available, and so you can quickly connect them if you have a quick instant message or if you need to do a screen share or work with them. So it's been an invaluable tool that we've used, and it's used throughout our organization, and we see a lot more and more customers and companies leveraging this technology, as well as between our organizations. We have customers that are on it, and so we actually work together and collaborate. Vendors, as I mentioned, with my Dell team that we work with, and so it's more than just the old AOL Instant Messenger, right? It's integrated with your systems, integrated with your calendaring, same logins, much better video collaboration, screen sharing collaboration, et cetera, et cetera. So it's something that when I wanted to touch on what we see organizations doing and having an impact through O365, most organizations, when they hear O365, either think just email or they're thinking like Office licensing, but Skype is one of those things that people have heard of, but it's really catching on, and a lot of organizations are leveraging it. So we want to touch on that. Thank you, Jeff. So I'm actually going to close out of this session. And now we're back to my Skype directory, and we'll start the presentation back up. So Trent, I know that you mentioned other technology. Does your organization use any type of instant messaging? I know there's a bunch of them out there, and I think I heard you say that you guys use a different one. But is there one that your organization uses?
Today, I know we use a Zoom. So Zoom's a new company with us, but we are moving as an organization on an email platform to O365 as well. So that is something that they're doing too internally. Whether or not that changes, I'm not 100% sure. So.
Sure. But you do have, so from an instant messaging perspective, you do have something that's rolled out and you're using internally as well.
Correct. Yep. It makes life a lot easier. So.
Yeah, that's what I found. It's one of the things that you don't know what you're missing until you have it. But it's definitely something that's improved our communication inside of our organization, and I think it's also mitigated having to walk around and track people down, because you can quickly and easily see if they're online or available, and be able to get some questions answered quickly. So touch on this slide. We went through how to find contacts, add contacts, how to add a group or create a group, how you can search internally or through the Skype directory, how you can share your screen, as Jeff mentioned. Now, it wouldn't have worked very well via the GoToMeeting recorded session to do a voice or a video call, but as you saw at the very bottom of the screen, just within a couple buttons, you can choose to do that. It makes it really easy. All right, so let's move on. So one of the other ways, and we touched on this briefly already, that we see organizations leveraging O365 is that more and more companies are actually subscribing or procuring their Office licensing through O365. That really started happening in the last probably 15, 18, 24 months, but we do see a lot of organizations doing that. It's not always happening all across the board, like all at once. Their organization might already be on O365 from an email perspective. Maybe they're only using email and Skype and SharePoint. But then when they're looking to replace computers and they're thinking about buying new Office licensing, that's when they're either adding it to their organization or adding it to individual users. So that's definitely something to consider. And again, one of the things that has driven that adoption is price. When you actually weigh the cost of buying it versus subscribing to it, it's pretty darn close. And this makes it a lot easier, just a really easy way to manage and know that this person is licensed and it applies to their mobile devices as well. So another one is we do see some use of SharePoint. The reason why I say that is because there are definitely organizations who might, there's a lot of organizations who use SharePoint. There's not very many of them that use it well. And part of it is because they haven't done a good job of defining how the organization is supposed to use it, what information should live there, what type of collaboration are you driving toward using SharePoint, those kind of components. So SharePoint is a good way to share and collaborate. It sometimes works as a replacement for, say, your file server. Not always. In fact, we've seen several organizations that tried it and it didn't really work very well for them. They didn't like it. The experience wasn't good. Doesn't mean SharePoint's bad. I'm not saying that at all. We use SharePoint a lot as well. It's just that the organizations who are using it and using it well are the ones that are very intentional about why it's used, and they have someone who's really responsible for making sure that it's not being misused or used that's outside of what the intended purpose.
And
so, Jeff,
to add to what you say, that the organization that I mentioned earlier, the SharePoint aspect of it, that made things better for our organization. So, and we do have somebody who takes care of that. So, and
I think that's been the important thing that I've seen, is that someone internally really needs to own it, because we as an IT support company and help you, we can definitely turn on SharePoint, help you implement something with SharePoint. However, if there's not someone internally that really drives adoption and the right use and the reasons for using it and how it fits into your operational processes, that's where we see it just kind of falling and just never being used, or just being used haphazardly and not really adding value to your organization. So, so it's a great tool. But it is just that if you don't define how to use the tool, it's not going to be very valuable to you. So, and then we do see some use of OneDrive, and OneDrive is one of it's similar to, I almost don't like making this connection, but I know people will resonate with it. It's like Dropbox. But it's limited, and it only syncs It doesn't sync. It syncs with SharePoint and like your local device or SharePoint on your mobile device. But what we found is some of the organizations who have tried to do that, especially as an organization-wise at a business level, that it's been challenging to manage because you can have a business OneDrive and a personal OneDrive, and the synchronization doesn't always work that well. And so for those that are more savvy, they're okay with dealing with the idiosyncrasies. For those that are less savvy and less prone to want to deal with any type of glitches or issues, it's a bad experience. We've experienced plenty of organizations that they say it's a bad experience. And so we only see some use of OneDrive as far as a tool that a few organizations are using. And even inside of that, it's usually only a few people in those organizations that are using it, rarely widespread. So those are some of the key ways we see. I don't know, Trent, with your experience, or Jeff, any other ways that you're seeing people adopt and leverage O365 to add value to their organization?
For us, for the group that I'm with, mostly it's all been around email and SharePoint.
All right, very good. Okay, so moving on, now let's hit on Proofpoint. So one of the things that when I talk about Proofpoint, there's probably many of you that don't even know what Proofpoint is. They're kind of one of those organizations that unless you deal with email security or spam filtering, you might not know who they are. And quite frankly, spam filtering isn't that exciting. You know, it's something that we all want because, you know, I don't know, I think 80 or 90% of email, if not more, is spam or junk. But it's not just about getting rid of those email newsletters or those marketing emails that go to you that you don't really want, that you might consider spam. It's now more importantly to look at spam filtering as email security, and that a lot of the threats, a lot of the bad stuff out there on the internet are trying to get at you through email. So think of it as email security, not just about, you know, making sure that marketing message that you don't want doesn't get to you. So, so I want to touch on that, and Trent will elaborate a little bit more on that. But the last part of this slide is talking about, so if you haven't heard MX Logic, MX Logic was a spam filter that many of my tech customers are working on, or that are their emails flowing through. That was bought several years ago by McAfee, which was bought several years ago by Intel, and Intel had made the decision to shut down that service and to discontinue it as of January of next year. So we have about 3.5 months to make a transition, and Proofpoint is one of the ones that has collaborated with Intel and McAfee to make that easy, and they have great complementary plans that are very similar, but also a great track record of working with you know, many organizations that you would know. So I'm going to leave it off to Trent to kind of dig in and tell us a little bit about Proofpoint.
Yeah, that's good there, and appreciate everyone joining today. So it's funny you should say MX Logic. So my office now is actually about 3 blocks from the old one. I started my career back at MX Logic in 2008 and went through all the acquisitions, and then when End of Life was announced, came over to Proofpoint because Proofpoint and McAfee kind of signed a partnership to help customers transition from one product to the other. And I worked a lot with MyTech at my time there as well, and have just continued that relationship here through at Proofpoint. So, but Proofpoint itself, they've been around for 13 years. They started out really focused on the enterprise and focusing on enterprise level customers, and then they saw a tremendous opportunity because one thing they realized very, very quickly, and something that was kind of mentioned today, is email, no matter what, is still going to be the #1 threat vector for any organization. It's the easiest way to get straight at the end user, easiest way in. We've seen a lot change. When I first started, right, it was just all about spam. How do you protect me from getting all this junk that I don't want? I only need about 5% of what's actually flowing in, to, wow, somebody's really targeting this specific user, and I need to know how to be able to stop them from doing that. So Proofpoint back in 2012 rolled out a new product line that focuses more similar to the MX Logic, where it's a cloud-based console. You actually do email flow, and we stop not just the spam virus protection, but we also stop on some of the targeted attacks that we see a lot of today. But as a company, right, we've led Gartner for the past 7 years. We've been the #1 in email space. It's part of the reason McAfee had to go into life, because they realized the investment that they had to make to get up to the level where Proofpoint is today wasn't worth it. And they decided that Proofpoint was doing so well that let's partner with them and try to help our customers best we can. Proofpoint owns 7 of the top 10 World Bank's using the service today, 14 of the top 15 research universities, and the list goes on and on from there.
Great. Yeah, that's thanks for telling that story, because it's basically you're the organization behind one of the I think the second largest, if I remember correctly, in the world that does this. And so it's amazing that such a impactful organization that really touches millions of people just isn't known. It doesn't, people just don't know you by name. So thanks for telling that story. So tell us a little bit about the advantages. I know that there's some, like the partnership that you mentioned with McAfee. I know there's some intentional work that Proofpoint's doing with O365 or to help make it seamless or work really well. Can you touch on that and elaborate for folks?
For sure. So a lot of the releases and stuff we've seen over the last couple of years that came in the email gateway space have come around how do we leverage this opportunity that Microsoft's creating with O365. We saw it as a tremendous opportunity to be able to complement those products, and I think, like I mentioned, it's more about looking at the threat itself and the fact that it's not just spam anymore, and how do we stop these different things. So we do some different things around, we look at attachments, we compare those attachments, do deep analysis on them to make sure that, hey, it is a legitimate attachment coming through, because that's the easiest way for somebody to infect the organization is to click on a bad attachment. But it's not just that anymore either. It's how do we protect against things like imposter email? That's probably one of the biggest things we've seen. I had a customer come to me last week that somebody within their organization sent out all the W-2 information for every single employee because they got an email that looked like it came from the CEO when somebody really just used their own domain against them and spoofed it. So these threats are dangerous. These threats are necessary. It's the #1 threat vector. So to protect these, right, you have to leverage a third-party solution like ours. How do we complement it in other ways, right? We add in some different products around like email encryption. So we can bundle not only your email security, but also your encryption and give you more of a low-cost model for both of those products. If you need encryption for things like compliance, making sure sensitive information isn't leaving, credit cards, social security numbers, maybe you fall under some kind of HIPAA compliance and there's certain things you have to look for in email, we can protect that way as well. We also provide, one big thing is a redundancy option. So should Microsoft have any kind of email flow downtime, which as everyone knows, email is just mission critical to every organization today, and any kind of hiccup in email flow can cause a major headache, we can actually provide spooling. So users can log out to a web-based platform that we provide, and we can allow them to continue about their day as far as email goes until Microsoft's back up and running at full capacity. So a lot of the complemented solutions right there behind that.
Yeah, and can you elaborate on real quick the fact that the default, there is some filtering with O365 for email, right? So there is some spam filtering. Can you, like, I just don't understand it as well as you do. Could you touch on what's the real key differences that the default filtering, because people with O365 are like, well, it includes a spam filter. Well, okay, but the definition of a spam filter is very vague and generic. So can you articulate and elaborate on the reasons why it's important to have more protection than just what's included in O365?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. So Microsoft's done a lot of great things for a long time, and this mail platform is an amazing experience for a lot of customers, and a lot of customers, including Proofpoint's, moving to it. The issue is you really need a dedicated security company that focuses just on email to be able to combat all these different threats. So Microsoft likes to roll in an email filter, as they say. I've had customers that have gone to it and have come back and said it's just not what we expected, right? Because that's not their focus. Their focus isn't around email. And really on their base level package that they're throwing in, it's just that spam virus filtering. They're not looking at things like targeted attacks or malicious attacks with attachments and things like that. That's stuff that they advertise as options, but it is stuff you're going to pay for. It's not included in their base level packages. And if you look at it as a whole, we would actually be a little less. You'd get a little bit better spam filtering for sure. You'd get much better targeted attack filtering, and then you get that redundancy built in as well. So the key to remember is when looking at this #1 threat vector, again, it's not just about those simple threats, those simple spams. How am I protecting the whole organization against all these bad actors trying to come in through email?
Very good. thank you for that. I think that's important that people don't really understand. And again, it's similar to the definition of a firewall, that there's some very vague criteria, so you can call yourself a firewall or call yourself a spam filter, but it doesn't necessarily always address. You need to dig in to make sure you understand what security it truly addresses and provides for your organization. So thanks for that elaboration. So real quick, we only have a few more minutes here, but I do want to touch on the programs. You've got 3 main levels, and we don't need to go into detail and pricing and all that kind of stuff. It's just what are the key components and how they build on each other, so that we can just make sure there's a good takeaway from the meeting today.
Yeah, for sure. So we like to offer in 3 different packages for customers. All the packages come with spam virus filtering, of course. All of them come with email continuity, that service where if the Microsoft has any kind of downtime, we'll spool messages, give users access. They start to differentiate where all of them, from Business, Advanced, and Pro, they're all going to come with different things like attachment defense. They're going to come with the DLP capabilities. But what separates the Advanced package is the option of having email encryption in there. And then what separates the Pro package is you get encryption. You also get email archiving and e-discovery, which Microsoft can provide some of that as well at a cost. Ours would be a bundled solution. You get everything together. You'd be able to retain messages for up to 10 years. We would go ahead and allow you to search those messages, and then the users would have the capability to have some searching capabilities as well, not just at an admin level.
Very good, thanks, Sharon. That basically applies to, I threw e-discovery in there because I know that there's, financial, well, any organization could be subject to e-discovery, but there are definitely regulated industries that have data retention requirements around them, and especially if it applies to email, this is kind of the method and the way in which to do that. So as well as adding on email encryption, and then those need it.
The last thing on there too is because we were the only vendor recommended by McAfee, anybody using that McAfee service today can work with Mitek on some transition that we helped create with the McAfee team that makes it more seamless than any other vendor can provide there.
That's fantastic. That's actually, Trent, thank you. It's one of the best, not only is Proofpoint a great solution, but it's also the fact that the partnership was created between McAfee and Proofpoint to enable a smooth transition for something as critical as email communication and encrypted email and archiving, et cetera. It's definitely a significant value add, and appreciate organizations like that doing that work behind the scenes just to make it easy for small businesses. So much appreciated. So all right, well, very good. There's the only last thing that I'd touch on. The last slide that we have here is really I wanted to highlight that some of these technologies we're talking about. It's interesting that some of the I actually have an old icon there for Link, but they have a Skype application that you can use on your mobile phone. There's actually, in addition to your mail app that you have on your phone, there's actually an Outlook application on your phone. I personally like my Outlook application better than the generic mail app on my iPhone. And then there's also, for those of you who might be Outlook Web Access users, there's an OWA app as well, or an Outlook Web Access app as well. There's plenty of others, but those are the ones in particular we wanted to touch on that complement, O365. And it's just a great complement, especially for your mobile users or your mobile workforce. So with that said, I do want to say thank you to everyone for participating. I did answer a couple of questions offline for those that answered, for those that asked some questions. But Jeff, thanks for helping with the demo and interjecting some commentary. And Trent, I appreciate you elaborating on Proofpoint. It was very, very much appreciated.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thank you.
All right, signing off. This will be, like I said, this is recorded. It'll be available on our website in the next 24 hours. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.